But I am very happy to start today's show with a man who knows an awful lot about Cal because one, he went there, two, he worked there. He knows an awful lot about the Pac 12 as a member of their broadcast teams. And now, of course, on to ESPN, where I'm guessing Roxy Bernstein is Bill Walton okay? I'm worried about Bill Walton. He had the Grateful Dead tour come to an end and his Conference of Champions all in the same month. It's a rough month for Bill.
I think we're all worried about Bill, to be honest with you. The last communication I had with Bill over the weekend was he's sad. He's angry and sad, and that's the way that I would describe my feelings too. It's just sad to see what's gone on. And the landscape of college athletics, it's ever changing, but I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams 5 years ago, even maybe less than that, could have predicted where we are right now. Because when you look at it, it's just crazy and it's just stupid. And to break it down in simple, easy terms, it's just stupid, Damon.
Roxy Bernstein here on the Plus. It's so good to have you, man. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for accepting the invite to come over and hang out with me for a little bit here. Let's just start with how you believe the Pac-12 got here, specifically Cal. If do you have an X marks the spot of where this all came to a head?
There's not one moment, Damon. There's, I think, a bunch of moments and a bunch of missed opportunities along the way, where the conference had a chance, and if they had made potentially the right move at every turn, maybe we're not in this predicament today. But unfortunately, that's the reality. That's where we are. And it's a shame that you're looking at the two LA schools. That was the big blow over a little over a year ago when they decided they were going to the Big Ten, and then certainly with what transpired late last week. But I don't think I ever in my wildest dreams figured the league would dissolve and potentially floating out into the Pacific. And there's a lot of finger pointing you can do, but at the end of the day, I think it comes down to missed opportunities, Damon, and there are a whole bunch of them where they had opportunities to take care of the conference, and it didn't happen.
Larry Scott, I think, is, first on that FBI's most wanted list when it comes to the crime of what happened here. George Kliakov came in to be the mop-up man, and I don't know if he grabbed his mop and bucket quick enough. Was the desire to find the perfect media deal really at the center of all this? They let pretty good pass them by, seeking perfect, which never really came.
Reportedly, that's the case, and they could have had the deal before the Big 12 got it, and they rejected it. And people want to make Larry Scott the poster child for what happened. There's a lot of blame to go around, and certainly you can put a lot on the plate of Larry Scott. But it's bigger than that, Damon, because Larry Scott works for people, right? And the presidents, the CEO group that are the presidents that make up the Pac-12, they're the ones that employed him. And they're also the ones that were in on these decisions. It wasn't Larry Scott unilaterally saying, I don't think we should expand. I don't think we should sell the Pac-12 network to ESPN. There were a lot of voices in the room. Larry Scott just happened to be, I think, the central figure for a lot of people because he was the commissioner of the league.
There are, like you said, so many elements and moving parts to it. One part that I just summarily reject is that, well, the biggest problem for Cal, and I'm not even including Stanford, because I would make the argument that the fact that the Bay Area is not in love with Stanford is easy to see on a lot of fronts. There is a passion for Cal in the Bay Area. I've seen it. My wife went to Cal. I'm a part of the Guardsmen. An awful lot of guys there are huge, proud Cal alums. I see Cal hats and gear everywhere I go. People do care about it. I've always thought it had been something of a bit of a sleeping giant. Unfortunately, the argument has been made that one of the things that always prevented the giant from waking up it was the school itself. Do you accept or reject the fact that there's always been like a tug of war over the Cal athletics department, place in the school between the actual school itself and the athletic department? How come they didn't work glove in hand together and always seemed at odds?
It's been that way for years, Damon, even before I went to school there. There's always been this animosity between the two for whatever reason.
It
But
makes
the
no sense.
academics,
It just doesn't make sense.
no, and one helps the other, right? If Cal has success on the field, the academic side benefits from it. There's more applications, there's more money coming in. But the academics kind of look down at athletics. And for whatever reason, there has always been this faction between the two sides. Has it hindered Cal athletics along the way? I think absolutely it has. Maybe that's why there hasn't been consistency. And look, I love my alma mater. Nobody's more passionate about wanting to see them succeed. But to me, Damon, it's not an accident Cal hasn't been to the Rose Bowl since 1959. It's not an accident that Cal has only won one conference championship in men's basketball since Pete Newell retired after 1960 when they're the national runners-up. There has to be, I think, more support from the academic side. Now, I got to give Jim Knowlton credit for that because he's tried to bridge the gap.
Current AD.
Yeah, he has tried. And I think he's had more success than some of his predecessors in that regard. But it's still a ways to go to mend that relationship. Could that have helped prevent where we're at right now? I don't think so, to be honest with you. I'm having trouble, Damon, coming to grips. You have two of the elite universities in our country. Cal is the #1 public university in the world. There is no education better than Stanford. Stanford's athletic department is the most successful athletic department in all of college sports. They have more national championships than anybody. And right now, they're looking around as if, what's our home going to be? Are we going to make do with Oregon State, Washington State, maybe piece this Pac-12 thing together? Are we going to go to the ACC like there were some reports late yesterday and this morning? I think all options are on the table, and to be honest with you, it's a matter of survival right now at the power level for both schools.
Let's say you had total power. It was up to Roxy Bernstein to figure out what was best for Cal. Would you want Cal, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon State to be a magnet to attract other schools to a newly reformed Pac-12? Or do you think it might be better to just say, look, it's broken. There's no real putting this back together, certainly not with the level of prestige that we used to enjoy. And maybe it's time to take what we do to another conference.
But is the answer going to the ACC? I don't know. And the Big Ten doesn't, at this point, really seem to want Cal or Stanford. So then what are your options? I mean, in a perfect world for me, everybody wakes up tomorrow and says, what the heck did we do? Right? How stupid are we?
Hit the reset button.
And everybody reverts back to their regional conferences and where they should be. I mean, you're talking about a league that produced the likes of Jackie Robinson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, John Wooden, Pete Newell, John Elway, Aaron Rodgers, Jim Plunkett. I can go on and on with Tiger Woods, with all the phenomenal athletes that have been produced by the Pac-12. It's a shame that this league potentially is going to be gone and a memory. And right now you have 4 schools just trying to figure out exactly what's going to be. And you're talking about Oregon State. The last 5 years in college athletics, there are a handful of schools. There's 4 schools that have been to an Elite 8 in men's college basketball, that have had a 10-win football season, and been to the Baseball College World Series. And that's Oregon State, among a group of 4 teams. And it's unheard of that they're right now. And they're poised to have a banner season. And that's the other thing, Damon, is the Pac-12 football season this year is going to be incredible. When you look at the talent across the board, the quarterbacks, you have the returning Heisman Trophy winner. Michael Penix up at Washington is going to be potentially a Heisman finalist. Cam Rising coming back to Utah, where they've won back-to-back conference championships and been to the Rose Bowl 2 years in a row. This is all going to go away. And it's just, to me, the more I think about it, the sadder, the more angrier I get.
As you should. As you should. It's gross. It's a little bit of the sign of the times. You know, sports always being a microcosm of society. It's like those who are wealthy enough to find a better neighborhood get to live fat and high on the hog, and those who are deemed less likely to help us all find success just get left to starve and die. And what I really can't believe, and I don't know how to even classify it, like I never, if you told me, all right, so the Pac-12 is going to implode, it's going to be ollie ollie oxen free for everyone, I would have never assumed that Cal and Stanford would be on the tier of abandonment, which Oregon State and Washington State find themselves on as well, both from much smaller, places in the world with less attention. I can't believe it. I know that there are people out there who are saying, well, move on. Talk about the 49ers, talk about the Giants. And, this is the thing. I'm glad to have my own channel here, Roxy, because I can talk about whatever I want. This remains the single biggest story in sports this summer. And it's just amazing. The rivalry with Stanford. Is it important for you to keep the preservation alive, or is this simply grab your own life jacket? Stanford be damned.
For me, it's important because to me, tradition and rivalries are what make college athletics great.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could pencil in the third Saturday in November. Every year, you're going to have the big game on the farm or at Cal. And everybody comes together. What a great scene it was. Sold out Memorial Stadium last November and a terrific comeback by Cal in the fourth quarter to win the big game. That's what college athletics is about. It's the competition. And keep in mind, they're supposed to be student athletes. I never want to hear anybody use that term again because they're not, right? They're just athletes now. And when you look at...
It's not even semi-pro. I mean, it's straight up professional athletics, what's going on here.
And it's college football and sports. It's not college athletics because football is the only thing that mattered in this, and it's not conference realignment, Damon. It's conference consolidation is what it is. And with calculated hits on the Pac-12. And the thing that I keep trying to come to grips with and trying to understand, and I'd like to think I'm a relatively smart guy, and I know there's people smarter than I am, but when there's all this money all of a sudden, Fox is able to pony up for Oregon and Washington to go to the Big Ten now. And then there's extra money also for the Arizona schools, Utah, and Colorado to go to the Big 12, right? Where was this money before when potentially this conference could have stayed together? And that's the other thing that I keep coming back to. Why did it have to come to this? That the Pac-12 gets dissolved, 4 are going here, 4 are going there, and there's 4 left holding the bag.
What do you think happens? Where does this end? Can you even fathom?
Well, first off, it's not ending. And eventually, here's what I think will happen, Damon, that college football will break away from the NCAA. It'll be its own entity, kind of like we see in the NFL with an AFC and an NFC, and maybe the NFC is the Big Ten and the AFC is the SEC.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the haves and the have-nots, and the power teams are going to have their own championship, their own television deals.
A fighting 40, whatever the two things are. 65 teams, whatever.
Whatever it happens to be. But also what I hope is a fallout, because that is going to happen. It's trending in that direction, that every other sport, whether it's basketball, softball, volleyball, whatever it is, everybody reverts back to their regional areas and conferences they were in before. There's no reason that Cal and UCLA, Stanford, USC shouldn't be playing every year in every sport across the board. It makes zero sense.
And what is never a concern, and this just shows you how hypocritical everyone involved is about the concept of student athletes. No one's talking about the volleyball team. No one's talking about the field hockey team. No one's talking about the track team, the swim team, any other thing other than football and basketball. And obviously they provide the lifeblood that everyone enjoys. But this is gutting so many things. I read a stream of consciousness on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is right now about, I think it was UCLA softball players basically saying, I wanted to come play softball at UCLA for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to go there. Number two, my parents could drive and see me, and we could all get in a car, and we could drive a few hours in any direction, and they could come to a road game. They cannot fly to Rutgers. They cannot fly into Piscataway as easily as it was to drive up the 5 to the Bay Area.
I saw a regent from the University of Michigan tweet something out that, well, why don't we invite a school from London instead of Oregon? Because it's actually easier for us to get to London, England than it is to Eugene, Oregon. But unfortunately, that's where we're at now. And you're right. It's the softball. It's the volleyball that are going to suffer because they're going to be traveling commercially. For the most part, men's and women's basketball, football, they charter. So they're in and out. And it's still going to take a toll physically and mentally on the basketball players. But what about the academics? What about all the missed class time?
No.
Eli Drinkowitz, the head coach of Missouri, I thought had a good rant the other day about it. Now, look, I make my living in college sports for the most part. Eli Drinkowitz makes a lot of money because he happens to be a head football coach in the SEC. Is it hypocritical? Maybe that they're commenting on this. But at the end of the day, it's common sense. And common sense tells you this is not good for the welfare of the kids that are going to college.
You are phenomenal at what you do, Roxy, no matter what sport you broadcast. And it's really, look, it's, I don't want to say it's easy to become great in any one sport, but it's hard to be good at all of them. And you are really good at all of them.
Thank you.
Let's say sports broadcasting fairy comes down and says, you can only pick one thing to do. What are you picking?
Really? I got two kids. You ask me which one's my favorite? The one that's being nicer to me that day. I mean, people ask me all the time, what's your favorite? I'm like, what's paying me that day? Because honestly, Damon, I love the variety. I grew up a basketball player, but I always loved baseball, always loved football. I've loved hockey. And it's great that ESPN's given me that avenue too, where I get to call the NHL, and I got to do the Stanley Cup playoffs, which was unbelievable last year and a great experience. And I wouldn't trade anything to give up what I'm doing. I love the variety. It keeps it fresh. Yeah, it kind of has to drag me in a bunch of different directions with a lot of prep, and I'm reading stuff all the time, but I wouldn't change anything. I love what I do.
Well, I tell you what, you're so good at what you do. Thank you for joining us a little bit today. I'm serious. My heart's breaking for you, man. My heart's breaking
Appreciate it.
For
and your wife
who loves college sports.
So hopefully people wise up and figure it out. And hopefully we get back to the way college athletics should be.
Roxy, thank you so much. Happy birthday to Mrs. Roxy.
I will tell her. Thanks, Damon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Roxy Bernstein, nice enough to join us here on the Plus.